David Murrin is the back global forecaster and author. He has been following the silver market for decades. This is what he says.
And now I think the dollar's turned because basically the dollar's about to have massive outflows of capital. Why would you be in America when the bubble's collapsing? So there's a sequence of events which are really exciting. And one of them actually is what I call a safe haven washout. When we last spoke, I viewed gold and silver as being your safe haven, and I still do. But there's a caveat. Having bought at the bottom of the correction, we got out of it after it tried to break out the top of the correction and didn't do it. Mm-hmm. And it's now back in the correction for gold, silver, and platinum. And I think it's going to flush to the downside because that's where people who are smart have their safe haven. And in fact, they're going to get flushed out of their safe haven at lower prices before it becomes a safe haven. So there's a huge opportunity in the management of that alone, which is actually very similar to Bitcoin. I think Bitcoin has always been going to 23K. We got short at, I think it was 66 and against a 68 high. We've been running it since. Target was 23, maybe 15, maybe 12 in the extremis. And then the story changes because it becomes something of interest, having flushed all the weak holders out. Mm-hmm. So there's some great opportunities if you can understand how the cogs are all moving together. And some of that requires a very different mindset from conventional safe haven thought processes. Mm-hmm. I mean, there's no doubt that big price flushes in equities have seen flushes in gold and silver because of the margin relationship. I think that it's an easy place to call your margins. And so I agree with that. And, right now, people's bond equity portfolios in the US must be bleeding from every orifice. So I think that's exactly kind of what you see. The trick is there's this moment when it suddenly becomes valuable, where all those weak holders are flushed out and basically doesn't go down anymore. And that's the trick in finding it. And what is really, I think gold and silver and Bitcoin have been one of our greatest alpha generators. They're really pure sentiment driven markets. And you can see the pattern clarity as a result is quite phenomenal. So, I mean, who would ever imagine that the dollar goes down and gold would go down together? That is a really, in prior risk-off situations, there's no precedent for it. But that's exactly what this is. This isn't a risk-off crisis outside America that touches America. America is the risk-off crisis. And that's why it will be completely different in its sequence from anything before. Yeah, so essentially you've got to think about over the 30-year period, if you think of a sequence of 5 waves lower, we have just finished the 4th wave before the big 5th wave to stay 30, 40% lower in the dollar. And in cases like the euro and, against the dollar index, that was like 3 attempts to get through the top side that was recent. It looks to me like it's really blown off. So right now, we've come off the highs in an impulsive move. The correction looks short. I think we're into the big dollar decline early stages. Just like the NASDAQ, we managed to get, all our clients short within 1% of the recent highs. So what I like, well, I don't really like the euro anyway, because it's terrible, but it will still relatively benefit. The dollar index is a form of euro, but I really like sterling. I think sterling is the safe haven because of the fundamental reasons I mentioned about an expanding system rather than a contracting system. I think even though our government is as slow as a donkey, they'll work out that low taxation and taxation for stimulus is the only way to create growth faster than inflation or keep up with it. And Europe can't do it and America can't do it, but Britain could do it. We could actually flat tax ourselves, get all the capital from Europe and America, and create a super high return profile.
Before we continue, help us clicking that YouTube like button and subscribe now to our channel. This shows the algorithm that you valued this information. And it helps us spread that message. Sharing is caring. And now, let's continue.
You don't even have to offer to lower taxes this year. You just have to say we have a 5-year program. At the end of 4 years, we'll have a flat tax of 20%, and all the money will come pouring in. And I do not understand why. Well, I do, because we have a chancellor who really is a single stock analyst in his professional career, and somehow doesn't have any individual thought. He thinks as a linear person, happy to give away money, but can't create money. And right now, we have the ability to create in Britain. So I think that's an important opportunity that Britain represents. The other one that's interesting is if you go and look at the Chinese currency, it came off its highs against the dollar, and then it bounced really sharply. That is just the last part of the correction. So that hegemonic currency shift, you're going to see the dollar lose favor against the yuan, and in a big way. So yeah, I think that surge has already started, and it's going to be very profound, especially as equities start to move back through their lows. You'll see people, this flight, getting their money out of the US.
So is it not really a driver of dollar strength when equities collapse? People wanting to sell equities to that creates demand for the dollar. Is that
That's exactly been what every other risk-off scenario has produced. But I have argued that this one is going to be different because it was always risk-off somewhere else. And it in America, because the safe haven, so you bought dollars and you need it for liquidity. If you think of America being the subject of the bankruptcy program, then that's the one currency you don't want. Mm-hmm. And essentially, that's what that is. This is basically a bubble that's blowing up, like 29, but squared. And in that case, an awful lot of European investors and Asian investors put their money in the States with that high growth process. And now they're going to be desperate to get their money out. So I think we will see those outflows linked to the implosion of the doomsday bubble. I mean, most foreign investors will have put their money into the equity market because it's stratospheric behavior. Well, right now they're desperate to get it out, and keeping it marginally in some US bonds for sort of less 8% of inflation and negative returns is hardly an attractive proposition. And then you end up with a self-feeding process of now you suddenly start losing on your currency, and all of a sudden the currency starts to unravel itself. Now you're caught, like any emerging market disaster. And I think that's ultimately where this is going. It's the unraveling of hegemonic power in America, financial power at least. But it isn't just about energy. It's about every other commodity that you pay for. Mm-hmm. So I think, and obviously America becomes an exporter and then domestically it suffers. So there's all sorts of stuff there that doesn't stop this process from basically eating into a consumer society. As for Europe, and Britain, for example, we could do far more to domestically access oil and gas. And this whole green drive, which has been I think the green drive is appropriate in terms of the goal of reducing carbon emissions. I think we're missing the point that we need to get the stuff out. It's so bad. But I think creating a paradigm where you suddenly become vulnerable to Putin through where you get your gas from was a height of stupidity, something we warned about ages ago. So you had to do it in a sort of strategically aware process. And of course, the West has had no strategic thought process whatsoever. It just has failed to recognize the predators at the edge of the field waiting to pounce. And now it's pounced, or they've pounced.
I have bad news for you. If you're not rich by now, you're screwed. And if you're in debt, you're even double screwed. How so, you might wonder? Well, the sad truth is that you're working your whole life to make someone else rich. The mega corporations, the banks, the politicians, everyone is getting richer. They get your money. And what is even worse, they get your time, they get your life. You are not even in a rat race, you're in a financial prison. But what could a solution for you look like? Honestly, I don't know, but I know what a solution for me would look like. It's very simple. I use whatever money I have and I multiply it with 1,000. This could make my life much easier and probably yours as well. If you have $1,000 available, and multiply this with 1,000, I believe that this could solve some financial issue for the one or the other. Of course, if you're ugly, you would have to multiply it with much more than 1,000. My name is Markus Dahn, and this is what I decided to do. I decided to 1000x my money. This is not a joke. I know what you may be thinking. What is this guy talking about? How should this work? This is not possible. Well, I made a detailed video where I laid out my plan. And some clever folks might even want to look at this plan and copy it and do exactly what I do. This is just a little hint on the side. You have two options. You leave, you forget what you have seen. You do whatever you're doing and you hope that somehow you get some other results. Good luck with that. Or you click the link below the video. You enter your email address because I'm not showing this to everybody. You at least watch my video on how I plan to 1000x my money. The choice is yours. Make the right choice. Join me. See what a different future you could have. See at least how I plan to do the 1000x. So click on the link below, enter your email address, and I see you on the other side. Your Markus Dahn.